Every day, local government makes modern life possible. Water flows, roads are repaired, parks and playgrounds open and come to life. And behind each one of those services is a story of people who show up, care deeply, and lead with purpose, even when no one is watching. This is the HaltingWinter Podcast, and it's part of the HaltingWinter Project, a movement to restore pride, purpose, and participation in local government by sharing the stories that build belonging. I'm Seth Winterhalter, and every week I tell the stories that remind America where government really lives, locally, in our cities, our counties, and our communities. Before we hear today's conversation, I want to thank our founding sponsor, Tyler Technologies, a company that's been exclusively serving the public sector since 1998. From smarter budgeting to stronger resilience, Tyler Tech equips local governments with software and solutions that help leaders serve with clarity, efficiency, and impact. You can explore practical resources and hear the real success stories from communities across the country at tylertech.com/winter. That's tylertech.com/winter. Tyler Technologies, empowering the public sector to build stronger, more connected communities. Now, let's turn to today's conversation. Guest today is Dennis Champine, city manager in the city of Center Line, Michigan. And I hear it's snowing out. Dennis, welcome to the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you on today, even in these blizzard conditions.
Thank you very much, Seth. I appreciate the invite.
Well, we're going to have a good time today unpacking your story. Obviously, what captured my attention is you were named one of the top 10 city managers in 2025 by the Government Business Review, and I look forward to diving into that. You had a fascinating article that was written up about you and kind of what you're doing there in Center Line, and I think it's going to be super insightful and helpful and probably encourage those who listen to the podcast, city managers, administrators like yourself. But before we get to unpack that professional career and those insights, let's do what we do here on the HaltingWinter Podcast. Take us back to the beginning and let us get to know you, the person, before we get to know you, the city manager. Tell us about where you were born and the childhood that kind of shaped you and led you to this unique journey you've been on.
Well, I mean, I was born in Royal Oak, Michigan, probably just 5 miles from where my office is currently located here in Center Line. And raised in Warren, Michigan, which is the community that entirely surrounds the city of Center Line. So just over a mile from my office is where I grew up in what we call the southern part of Warren. Went through all my youth living in that neighborhood. It was a low income, moderate income neighborhood of mostly large families, and a great upbringing. With 9 siblings and a 3-bedroom house, just like many of us growing up in that neighborhood did. Learned very early on the importance of serving others.
What did that's so interesting. It's a city surrounded by another city. How did Center Line come into being? What's the story there?
Center Line actually was a village long before Warren became a city. There were multiple townships that were communities north of Detroit that really became established from the establishment of the automobile industry here in Detroit, Michigan. And many of our residents settled in these communities to the north. Center Line's history goes way back to the 1800s, though, and really got its name from being the center line between Detroit or Fort Detroit and the city of Mount Clemens, which now is the county seat of our county seat here in Macomb County. Center Line was the center point for fur traders between the fort in Detroit and Mount Clemens, which was a sort of a stopping point along the trail where many fur trappers were involved. And ultimately, it did become a village first. In 1926, The village then became a chartered city again before Warren actually became a chartered city, which occurred 21 years later. So that's kind of how we ended up getting surrounded by another city. We were already chartered, so Warren could not, um, you know, uh, um, annex the city of Centerline because it was already chartered in accordance with the state laws at the time. And so that's sort of how it became an enclave of the third largest city in the state of Michigan.
Oh, how fascinating. Okay, so for the national audience, then help us understand. It's an inner ring suburb of Detroit. How far are you from downtown Detroit?
The center of our city is exactly 2 miles from the northern border of Detroit.
Okay.
Um, but not far, about 20 minutes from downtown Detroit.
Mhm.
Actually, our tagline is the heart of Metro Detroit.
There you go. So that gives some context to where you're located
Right.
in Michigan. It's always interesting these cities that have, or these states that have a city like Detroit. You know, I mean, Detroit is a huge city. It's kind of like when I grew up in Seattle. I went and did my undergrad in Springfield, Missouri. I remember the first time I went to New York, and I thought the whole entire state was pavement and skyscrapers. And you get there, and it's like this tiny little part Manhattan, and the rest is like farm town and
Yeah.
sprawling hills. And you're like, well, what is this? This isn't my image of New York. And so
Right.
Detroit, same, right? Michigan's this big state. I remember driving through actually Michigan on my, when I moved to New York, I drove through Michigan on the way up.
Yeah.
And yeah, just fascinating state, fascinating place. But yeah, you're so center line is this again 2 miles away, so you're close. It's this inner ring suburb. What was it like? You mentioned growing up in this unique environment where lots of families, you had a ton of siblings. That sounds like a government in itself, like all these
Yeah.
departments going on fighting for resources and budget.
Kind of is now with all the grandchildren and great grandchildren. So,
I bet. What did you have any local government awareness as you're growing up, and if you did, how and why? What did that look like?
yeah, I did from a very young age. We grew up in an area where the mayor at the time, the mayor of Warren at the time, was also a member of the church that my family attended. So, he was just as involved in the church as my parents were. So we grew up with his children, and he was a very popular mayor at the time and very involved, and just as my parents were. And so there was that partnership that went on between families and a very close knit community, even in the small part of Warren that we were in. Many of us were a part of that partnership to work together and create a better community. And like I said, the mayor of Warren at that time was a member of our church, so that made it, it sort of fed into the mindset of the importance of being a servant to others. And you know, just getting to know the mayor at the time and understanding what it was that he did. And then as time passed and as I grew older, I stayed involved in the local politics. Eventually became a campaign worker for another mayor that a guy that I grew up with. He's a little older than me, but ultimately I grew up with him. He became my wrestling coach, and eventually we worked together in the school system. And he was a teacher and I was a secretary. It just kind of snowballed as I was moving through my early adult years and trying to establish, a career. I stayed involved even when I went away for my time in the Marine Corps. I still stayed connected to the community. And, my mom and dad were both members. My dad was a school board member. So, he showed us the importance just by being involved in the school system that we all were educated through. My mom was a paraprofessional in that school system. Myself and at least three other of my siblings became employees of the school system. So again, it was taught. It was taught as a part of our life and our daily activities. And we were closely knitted, even though we were the third largest city in the state.
Yeah. Okay. So I have on your kind of resume trajectory story, you're gonna have to fill in the gaps here. You just mentioned the Marines, and then I have Van Dyke Public Schools, and then the city of Warren, Michigan. You actually work for the city of Warren. And so guide us, what's going on in Dennis's mind? Because one of the things I love to do is encourage young people to go, hey, I think there's so much pressure. I got to make it. I got to, go to the right school. I got to have the right degree. And if I mess this up, my trajectory is screwed. And it's like, dude, there's so many paths, so many. That's why I love unpacking the paths of how people end up where they get. Like, there's so many things that shape and mold, and there's no really wrong way to do it. It's just about, the adventure that's unfolding. So tell us about that. What were you thinking as you're in high school? What are you thinking about the next steps? Was it local government? Was it going out and were you gung ho to join the Marines? What was that like? And then take us through that into Van Dyke, into the city of Warren.
Yeah. So, I, as a kid graduating from Warren Lincoln, I came from a family, where my dad had to work 2 or 3 jobs to make ends meet, put food on the table, clothes on our backs, and give us a good start in life. We my dad didn't want us to have to struggle like he did to raise 10 children. And, my mom was stay-at-home mom, and she provided us from the home. So, we learned early on how dad didn't want us to be working in factories and doing that kind of work. He had hoped for all of us to be able to live out our lives with careers that would give us better lives than what he believed he had. And so for me, I had intended on leaving high school at 17. I left halfway through the school year because I had achieved the credits that I needed for that, and went and worked a full-time job at the local Burger Chef restaurant to put money in an account so I could go to school for avionics in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And so 3 of my buddies and I from Lincoln High School all went down to Tulsa. I ran out of money and I ended up right back home. My parents were of the mind that, if you leave and you come back, you're going to have to pay your way. And so there was room and board and that kind of thing. And so, I went out and started looking for possible jobs. There were some opportunities, but there weren't a lot. And this was about 1981 that I was dealing with this, I was really not employable. I didn't have a lot of skill sets other than my high school education and flipping burgers. So, I kind of just decided that I needed to look at other options. The military became, one of those things to look at. And so I spoke to all the branches of the military, sat down with each of them. The Marine Corps became my choice because they said, well, if I'm going to join the military, I might as well go all the way and really go through the biggest challenge in my lifetime up to that point. That is why I ended up in the Marine Corps. I was fortunate enough to do very well on the ASVAB test that they had back in those days. Therefore, I had a signed contract specifically to go into administrative services in the Marine Corps. And that sort of gave me the beginning of what ultimately would be the culmination of my career today. I had no college education other than the avionics classes that I had taken during the year in Oklahoma, but that gave me an opportunity to learn something to take into the future. Therefore, I became an administrative clerk in the Marine Corps and did 6 years there. When I did finally discharge out of the Corps in '87, Van Dyke Public Schools, which is the school system that I graduated from, had an administrative clerk position opened and available, and it was a unionized position in the district. So it gave me the opportunity to transition into the civilian world. I did work prior to that at General Motors as an administrative budget analysis for General Motors, but that didn't last. It was only about 6 months. It was a temporary job. Um, but Van Dyke Schools, the work and the things that I learned were in addition to everything I'd learned in the Marine Corps, and did that for about 10 years. And um, as I mentioned earlier, I got involved in the campaign of one individual who was running for mayor of Warren, and although he lost his first attempt to become mayor of Warren, on his second attempt he won on a grassroots type campaign, and I worked hard for him and helped him get elected along with many other people. But he was also a teacher at the adult ed program where I was her secretary. And so we had a lot of opportunities to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly about Warren politics and how things needed to be changed with regards to the direction of the community. And because of that and my work in his campaign, he ultimately appointed me after he was first elected. We did 12 years together, 3 terms. When I left that position, I was his community relations director. At that point, I'd only had, my associate's degree and my bachelor's degree. And I had decided to, at 40 to get my formal education because, frankly, I didn't think I'd go anywhere else or be able to go beyond a community relations director position. But I got my education, and then at the end of 12 years with Warren, the incoming mayor and I didn't see eye to eye on many political issues. So I was unappointed and decided that it was time for me to get some experience under my belt regarding management, administrative business management, and went into the private sector. For about 8 years, did some private sector management.
Okay. Oh, this is so good. Okay. I love this, that again, you're working at the school and a relationship forms, and this guy wants to get energetic guys who want to change. Like, you see, like, this is not healthy. We got to be the change. Right. Which again, you say that's a daunting, people don't understand the elective process. And just because you have a good idea and some energy doesn't mean, no one likes change. We all like comfort, even though we'll kind of complain about things, but when push comes to shove and we have to vote, it's easier to vote for what you know, I guess. And so you win, and now you're working for the city of Warren. And again, the city of Warren, I think, is about 137,000 people. Again, it surrounds, where you're at now in Centerline. So this is a large place. What was it like to work for the city that first, especially when you are working for a mayor who's been brought in to hopefully elected on change and on what was it like to now be in the belly of the beast of bureaucracy?
Yeah. Wow. And it was the beast. There's no doubt. Warren, Michigan is known for its politics over community. And this mayor, his name was Mark Steenberg. He is still, still around, but Mark Steenberg had built his whole campaign on changing the direction of the community and trying to put an end to the political influences that resulted in the city not having very much success at progressing as a community. So, he brought me in because of my ability to work with people and find ways to make things happen. He felt that was something that I was good at. If anything at all, my communication skills would help me get into that position. So I became, for lack of a better term, the face of his office. When the public needed something done, if it was a resident or a business or whatever, it was my job to find out whether or not it was a service that we could provide under the policies and procedures of the community and make that connection. So I was the liaison between people and, the community leadership or the departments of the city. therefore community relations. It was my job to relate to the community. And I think that it's fair to say that I was good at it. And he knew, he could see it from the very beginning that I would be able to provide his office with the kind of capabilities that were needed to help his office, make those changes that we had so badly wanted for our community. And we were successful during that time. We achieved so many great things that even to this day, nobody else has been able to achieve. So I've always been very proud of my 12 years of service with Warren. It was crazy though, dealing with politicians and learning about the politics of a large community like that. Certainly was a big part of the challenges that I had to get through. But it's taught me a lot to be in the position I am today, for sure.
Like you said, you worked for the city of Warren for, I think it was about 12 years, and
12 years.
Halfway during that, you're like, hey, let's go back to school and let's start to get some, get the degrees, finish the undergrad, right, do the master's degree, do this at Central Michigan University. I think that's another thing, is that hungry and pursuit to continue to learn and develop, and again, get the things that will help you, level up. And so you do that. So just to encourage, if you're listening to this and you're older and you're like, oh man, what do I do? Maybe go back to school. Maybe, right? How can you stretch yourself? How can you continue to open up opportunities? What was that like? I mean, tell us about just maybe for that. I'm sure the work you do when you're in local government, one of the things I say is the work never shuts off. You just, especially when you're dealing with community stuff, just pulls and, it's not a 9 to 5. And I'm sure, did you have kids then? What did family look like? And then adding school to that, how did you stay sane? Were you not sane for a few years? What did that look like?
Interestingly enough, the first couple classes I took in my associates with Davenport University really were challenged only because I was, the most education I had received up to that point was the few classes in Tulsa and then my high school education. So I went into it very, very anxious. But after I completed my first two classes, all of a sudden it became something that was enjoyable. And I mean, I thrived off of what I was learning, in the associates and then into the bachelor's program, and ultimately in the master's program. I couldn't stop. I got addicted to learning, and my wife was like, "Wow, how do you do this?" We had 6 children together. I had my first 4 children with my first wife, and then after a divorce, I met my current wife, who had 2 sons from her first marriage. We consolidated our families together to make 6 altogether, and most of them, 5 of them, were teenagers during the meat of all of this. I was in school pretty much on a full-time basis while I was working a full-time job, and still helping pitch in and raise 6 kids with my wife. And so, it was a challenge. Most nights I was lucky to get 4 to 6 hours of sleep because I, was up late doing my homework, doing my, especially in the bachelor and master programs, you have many different projects that you have to work on and develop as part of your education. I ended up doing pretty well. My wife was always kind of shocked. How do you get these good grades? And, you're only getting 4, 5, 6 hours of sleep. You know what? I think it just had a lot to do with the fact that I was always a very, you could call it hyperactive, but I call it just a ton of energy. And that's been the case throughout my adult years. But I don't know, honestly, how I did it. I just, worked hard, kept my nose to the grindstone, and I believed that the education would only help my career, help me further my career, and help me, be able to provide further for my family. And now it's just, my wife and I, the kids are all gone now and they're making babies on their own. So it's good. It's led to a pretty good life for us.
I love it. I love it. And you did it all without the help of Chat GPT back in the good old days, right?
We did it with a lot of different things, but I joke around with my staff about the Microsoft 365 and how that helps me stay organized in the things that I do day to day. And back when I was a young man and just learning how to become a manager, it was the Franklin booklet that we used. So things have changed dramatically. Technology has made our jobs so much easier. The biggest problem I have today is people not taking advantage of the technology that we do have available to us to help them be more productive.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that. We're going to get to that when we dive into Centerline. But I want to hit on this public sector to be in the public schools again is kind of private sector and kind of a partner to local gov. You're then in the city of Warren, so you spend this good chunk of time in this or in the public sector. I mean, not the private, in the public sector. Now you're going to go into the private sector. What was it like to spend those I can't remember, is it 8 or so years? What was it like to jump into the public sector? What was eye-opening? What was it, again, for a guy who seems to like run at a pretty high pace? Was it like, whoa, now we can get some stuff done. Now we can take some risks. What was that like to jump from public sector to private sector?
Well, the economy really tanked out from about 2007 when I lost my position with the city of Warren. And so I really just had to find opportunities in a time when many people were underemployed. So I became underemployed and wasn't making nearly as much money as I was when I left the city of Warren. But, there weren't a lot of opportunities, and I had my mindset was that I needed to get into more management opportunities to sort of build on the education that I had up to that point. And so, I started out with going to the Thumb of Michigan to work with the Fowler Center for Outdoor Learning, which was a camp for special needs, autistic children and adults. We had the opportunity to, learn how to work with people with special needs as a events coordinator, and then just kept trying to find something that was paying more, providing more opportunities. So I went from there to, GCA Services, which was a company that managed privatized services for public school systems here in Michigan. Managed a few accounts for them, and then ultimately left there, found a position at a community in Centerline called the Kramer Homes, 500 unit community in a co-op, housing cooperative. They were offering a decent salary, and it was an opportunity for me to sort of pull together all of the knowledge that I had gained up to that point by managing that community. Again, it was all about building on what I already learned and learn more. The mayor at the time of Centerline took notice of what I did there at the Kramer Homes Cooperative. And ultimately, I was kind of thinking I would stay in the private sector up to that point. But then the mayor came in, and he was a former resident of the community, the co-op, in his family when he was first raising his kids. So he was, very proud of that fact. And he appreciated the fact that I was able to improve the community as a whole within his city. Then he offered me an opportunity to interview for the position here. And that's how I ended up where I'm at. So, the private sector really was just for learning. There is a difference. with the public, you got rules and you have to live by those, and you have to, I think you're locked up on me now. Um, anyways, you have rules and policy and so forth that you must abide by. In the private sector, not so much. There's a lot more flexibility to adjust. It's hard to do in the public sector, but I'm the kind of person that I like that structure. I like the structure, and so when that opportunity was offered, for me, it was a no-brainer.
We're living through one of the biggest shifts local government has ever seen. Not political, not cultural, it's digital. AI, automation, cybersecurity, cloud migration, none of this used to be part of your job description. But now it's the choppy water every city and county is swimming in. And for many leaders, it feels less like innovation and more like what's going to break next, and will we survive it? Here's the truth most people won't say out loud. A lot of governments aren't afraid of the cloud. They're afraid of getting it wrong. Because the stakes are real. You're trying to protect data, modernize ancient systems, improve service, and keep your residents happy, all while staying under budget and out of the fire. That's why I appreciate the team at Tyler Technologies. They don't talk about the cloud like it's magic pixie dust. They break it down. What to migrate, when to migrate, how to get long-term value without blowing your budget or burning out your people. They've helped more local governments make this transition than anyone I know, and they've put all their best insights into a new ebook about cloud adoption and strategy. If you're trying to lead your organization into the future instead of getting dragged there, you got to check this out. Their newest guide is called Modern Governments Live in the Cloud, and you can download it for free at tylertech.com/winter. That's tylertech.com/winter, WINTER. tylertech.com/winter. Go check it out. Download the free guide. Now, back to the conversation.
It's so, again, this is so unique to see someone in the private sector jump into the city manager role. I mean, that's a big jump. But again, this is how it's just wild how connections and networks. And again, this mayor sees the job you do. Again, he didn't give you the position. He let you apply for it, but you won the position. What's it been like now to be the city manager of, again, this is so unique. I always think about Bill Wagner in Arcola, Illinois, and how he grew up in Arcola. He's the first city administrator it's ever had. He's the only city administrator he's ever had, but it's so dear to him because this is home. What's it like to be the city manager of a place you care so deeply about? And what is, I mean, you've been in it since 2015. You went through the pandemic. You went through everything.
Yeah.
I bet it has been a journey. I mean, 10 years too. That's a good tenure for a city manager. So tell us about
we're told that the average in the state of Michigan is 2 years for any city manager. I do know of a handful of managers who have been in their roles for even longer than me. And it is a special thing when you are able to make that connection. I think it really did matter that I had a very strong understanding of not just Warren, but also this community that Warren surrounded. They're two totally different communities. The uniqueness of each is so clear, and they're so different. As a kid growing up in the southern part of Warren, when we drove through Centerline, we thought that was the rich neighborhood. and the police officers in Centerline didn't mess around. If you came through there 1 mile over the speed limit, you got pulled over. Just totally unique, in regards to how the communities were. But if we took Warren and broke it up into the many different smaller townships that it once was, then you could say that they're almost identical to each other, Centerline and these other little townships, because we were closely knit in the area, the south central part of Warren. truly the only difference between us and Centerline at the time really was just that the kids that grew up in Centerline had parents who probably were more in the white collar, economy versus many of us that grew up in blue collar homes and Warren. Yet Centerline still had many families that were blue collar as well. They just made more money. They had more money. They had nicer neighborhoods. There were very distinct differences between the communities, but in a lot of ways, there were some things that were the same. And we had small town lifestyle in South Central Warren, just as much as it is here in Centerline. And that's still very true today. The difference between the communities really is the size of government and the size of the population. And, they're more than 10 times bigger than this community, Centerline. But, in the end, I think the uniqueness of the communities was truly the difference in a lot of ways. However, like I said, there were a lot of things that were the same. And so it was easy to adapt, I think, from growing up in Warren. Like I said, the home that I grew up in, and then I raised the street that I raised my children on early on is just a mile away. And seeing how those neighborhoods have gone down in regards to the overall um, um, value of properties and where the city of Warren is with regards to trying to maintain good neighborhoods and so forth is so different from what it was when I was there. And yet Centerline is very much just like it was when I was there. So when I took this job, I made it clear to city council, and some people might find this offensive, but I told the council that I was going to make sure that what was happening in my neighborhood that I grew up in did not happen in the city of Centerline. And I am fortunate enough to have great people working with me that have helped me achieve that goal. This community has been able to withstand what many outer ring communities have gone through and transitioned through during these up and down economic periods that we have experienced over the last 40, 50 years here in Metro Detroit.
Well, exactly, because not only did you have to go through the pandemic like everyone else, I mean, we all know Detroit and the auto capital and just the reality of, what has happened, there from at least a bigger perspective, from a national perspective of the auto industry. Let's chat about that, because I love the article and I want you to dive into it, because I think you're going to share a lot of really helpful insights for the audience of city managers, administrators who listen to this. The big thing that jumps out of the article, it says tax revenue beyond property taxes. And I think that will resonate with every city manager. Where do you find the money, especially now, the fear of federal pulling money, states? I think of, Washington, like we're just taxed. It feels like we're taxed to death. Now they want to do an income tax, and yet the state's bankrupt. It has no money, and it's just like, where is this money going? And so the local government's got to figure it out, right? It's like, you guys, people aren't going to put up with not having their water, their sewer delivered or taken away, the trash. And so I want to dive into maybe two things you said, and whatever else you want to talk about this, but we did something for, again, that idea. We've got to do something beyond property taxes for tax revenue. Obviously, we can talk about the service agreement with the U.S. Army Garrison. I think that's fascinating, but also the partnership with the city of Warren and McComb County. What did you do? How did you get creative? How did you, look at the situation you were in and go, we got to do something different? And that's maybe the big thing is a lot of local governments see the writing on the wall, but they don't take any action. You took action. What'd that look like?
I mean, when I first arrived, I was familiar with the fact that Centerline had the highest tax rates in Macomb County. I, as a taxpayer, I saw that and thought, how could I change that? Well, one way we change it is we get rid of debt service. We get rid of the debt that's on the books, so we're paying off the bonds as quickly as we can. And when we pay them off, instead of keeping the tax, and also the Headley Amendment Proposal A laws that we have in Michigan with the caps, we had to find a way to give people back their money. If in fact we were able to achieve the benefit of services, municipal services, without increasing the tax rate. In my 10 years plus, I've been able to ensure and help our political leadership, reduce the tax rates here in Centerline. That doesn't mean that we didn't have more expenses, though, because the cost of living goes up for municipalities too. So we had to find more creative ways to raise revenue versus raising taxes for revenue. And one of the things that I learned during my master's program at Central Michigan was the benefit, the importance of having working partnerships with other communities, other entities, other organizations, however it may be. And that did start out with trying to strengthen our partnerships with the surrounding community. Warren, they have a lot of services that Centerline could never afford to have. Splash pad, aquatic center, community center, and those kinds of services. And so we were encouraged to establish a stronger relationship with Warren to take advantage, have our residents taking advantage of those services. And so we came up with an agreement where Centerline pays the city of Warren $12,000 a year. And that will allow our residents to participate in services through Parks and Recreation in Warren and facilities that offer services at the resident rate that Warren taxpayers pay. And that has really been huge because we have a small community center with a couple pool tables and some meeting rooms, but that's about it. We do have one of the area's best municipal parks, and those are points of pride for us. But we could never offer what Warren has been able to offer its residents. It's been a huge benefit for those that in Centerline that participate in their programming. That saves our residents a lot of money. And we're happy to have that partnership with them. The partnership beyond there include police and fire support, mutual agreements to support each other. We also have a mutual agreement with the U.S. Army Garrison in Warren. They have a high-end fire department. Our fire department is part of our public safety. So our public safety officers are both police officers and firefighters and trained in both of those areas. We do have fire equipment for our community, but when we have fire incidents in the community, we have the benefit of the U.S. Army providing us support when we are dealing with a structure fire or an auto accident, a serious auto accident. We partner also with a private ambulatory company here in Southeast Michigan to provide our community with ALS support. And then we partner with Macomb County as well for planning and economic development, community development block grant programming, and so forth. A community our size really does need those partnerships. And we've been pretty effective building them with other governments and, other entities. The big one really is, and the proud moment for us really is the partnership we have with the U.S. Army Garrison in Warren. I had learned years ago with my master's program, part of my capstone or my, uh, they call it the capstone, but when I did my capstone, it was about the benefits or lack thereof of privatization of public services.
Mm.
And one segment of my capstone was regarding the very first IGSA that occurred in Monterey, California, with the Air Force facility, I believe with the U.S. Air Force, if I remember correctly. And I learned a lot about it during that when I was doing that capstone for my master's. And interestingly enough, 5 years later, or 5 years down the road or so, I found myself sitting at the garrison with my mayor and the garrison manager at the time, talking about how Centerline could possibly provide services through its procurement policies, which ultimately could save the U.S. Army money, earn the city of Centerline some new revenues, and increase the value of providing those services to our vendors. It didn't go anywhere that first meeting, but we continued to talk about it in how we could move this forward. And for this, it's called an IGSA, or Intergovernmental Service Agreement. The U.S. Army then came to us and said, "Hey, how about giving us some numbers? Tell us what it would cost, to provide DPW snow removal and lawn care and various other services that our DPW and Centerline was providing for its residents." And then, what would it cost if you had your solid waste and recycling company that you have privatized in your community to do the same for us? And so we started crunching numbers and, put together some proposals, and U.S. Army came back and said, "Gosh, we got to do this. It's going to save us 25% versus the federal procurement policies." And what we saw was an opportunity to earn upwards of $250,000 a year in administrative fees applied to those contracts. It has been very successful. We are now providing engineering, architectural services, contract management services, bid solicitation services, solid waste, recycling, and commercial shredding services to the Army garrison in Warren. They are so happy with it that they have now spread the word to other garrisons in other states. And we are looking at now creating our first RICSA, which is a regional intergovernmental service agreement with garrisons in 2 other states. I won't tell you what they are yet because we don't have an agreement yet, signed between the other garrisons in the city, but they want to save money too. And we're excited to help them do that. And we just received word from the garrison that they also want to help their U.S. Army partners over at the Selfridge Air National Guard Base, which is, probably just 15 miles from here. But, you do something effectively, and people see the benefit of it in numbers. It all of a sudden becomes an even better package of what we do besides providing services to our own residents. We now can do things, one-time purchases because of this, that we could never do before. New roofs on buildings and updating things. And we use the money for that, though. We use it for one-time purchases. The local tax dollars still go towards the services, but money we earn from this is going towards one-time upgrades, purchases, things that we need for the community. We just bought a fire truck, partly with money that was earned there. Beyond that, our city council opted in early on with medical marijuana and adult recreational marijuana. Centerline became one of the first communities to opt in, and we really focused on how we could do that effectively. And we've had great success there as well. About $1.5 million in new revenue every year from opting in on marijuana.
I just love that again, you're looking and you're willing to have the conversation, right? Like you said, when you had that first conversation with the garrison, it wasn't, oh yeah, let's do it. Let's jump in. No, it took time. You had to keep going back. You have to, and I think that's the work of it. And so,
got to be open to that stuff though. You got to be open, you can't close your mind on it and say, oh no, that's not going to work. You got to be able to say, I can make it work.
Yeah. There's two other things I want to chat at, and I want to be mindful of your time. One of the other things in that article was engagement with residents. And that's a huge thing. In fact, I just, as we're recording this yesterday, I put up a post. I had a city administrator reach out to me and say, hey, I listened to the podcast and I've heard a lot of people mention like citizen academies and how to get their residents, aware of what local government's doing. And so I just put a quick post up on LinkedIn and said, hey, if you're running a citizen academy, put in the comments and let's share some resources. And it just kind of took off. And I think that's one of the things is in an age of incivility, right? The national scene's chaotic, no matter what political side you're on. The states are, the state is crazy. And local government has to bear that because an average person isn't going to go to DC and complain, but they can go to City Hall. They can show up, they can get on the comment section of the Facebook, page and cry to the moon about whatever. And it is always residents just, that's part of the reason for this podcast is residents don't really pay attention to local government unless something breaks. We just are entitled to all the services it provides and we don't want to pay any taxes. So let's talk about how you engage with residents, how you communicate with them, how you bring them on board. It seems like that stood out to me. What insights do you have?
Yeah, I think that ultimately we make sure that our residents are well-informed using all of the media components that we can. So, we do a lot of online surveys. We have in the past done, sort of a town hall meetings. We called them Let's Talk. And we gave residents an opportunity to meet at a local business, cafe or something, where small groups of residents could speak with their political and administrative leadership. And it was only an opportunity for them to express what they wanted to express and for us to hear it. Mm-hmm. I think that that's the most important part about engagement. Political leadership, administrative leadership has a responsibility to listen and develop ideas on how to address each of the things that taxpayers have brought to our attention. We have been very effective at that. I have probably the best example I could ever give you is because we listen well, our city council on only one occasion, there's four council members and a mayor that sit on our board here in Centerline. And we've had, for the better part of 6 years now, only one vote on any agenda item that was a vote against something that we presented to the body. The rest of those votes over that period of time have been 5-0 votes. And why is that? Well, it's because we listen. We listen to what our political leadership is asking for, and that's what we give them. It is not our role as administrators to push through what we think, because we work for the people. They present to us what they want. We do something about it. We create those environments where what they want, they get, at least most of the time. I mean, obviously, financially, if there's restrictions, that's understood. But for the most part, it really is just about listening and then doing. Sure that the people are heard, and I think that that's the biggest part. If my staff and I, we do not go in and we just carry on about all our opinions. It doesn't really matter. I'm not a resident of the city of Centerline. Resident of another community north of the city of in northern Macomb County. And that's where I get to have my say about my community. When it comes to Centerline, I just listen, and we provide services based on what we hear, and I think that is what results in the best outcomes. But engagement really is just it's hard to get people to come to meetings. It's hard to get them to come to public gatherings when you talk about a small community like this. If you do get any, people, it's going to be, 20, 40 at the most. And probably in 10 years, I've had one incident where I had a council meeting where we had like 40 or 50 people show up. And it was because of a national issue, believe it or not. It had nothing to do with the services we provide, but as I have always done, our public safety department has worked closely with government, federal government, and state government service providers and law enforcement. We had an incident a time where we were given an opportunity to do some training through ICE. Well, on a national level where we're at with that even today. And so a lot of outsiders, along with some residents, showed up at a meeting not long ago, and they made it clear that they were opposed to any partnership. We had a memorandum of agreement for the training, but any partnership with ICE was going to be met with, protests. And the decision was made by my office to allow this training because it's something we've done with all of the federal agencies that have offered to do training for us or train our officers. So it wasn't out of norm for us to do this, but because of the heat we received from the many people that showed up at that meeting, I decided it wasn't, the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. And offered to reverse the MOA. That made all of those protesters happy, but then angered those that were on the other side of the political spectrum. Sometimes, though, you do have to listen to those people and hear them because the reality is you just don't want to bring that kind of, whether it's negative or positive, that kind of attention to a small community when your job is to try and bring people here and make them feel like they're welcome. And I certainly didn't make that decision to make people feel unwelcome. Therefore, it made it easy for me to say, you know what, we can still do law enforcement. We can still address the needs of the community if somebody is living here illegally. And that is possible. The training would have only given our officers the knowledge to do that job in a more effective way. This way here now, without that training, they're going to still do their job. And it's going to require them to communicate with agencies of the state or federal governments. It's just as I use this term often, the path of least resistance. So that's a great example of what we have dealt with in the past. But I'll tell you straight up, majority of the public meetings we have, we're lucky if we have 2, maybe 3 people show up regularly. And we've had much more impact with online surveys. We have our special events in the city. We've got 3 special events, and we have things that we want to get information from the public. What we do is at those events, we have a table there for people to get something free if they fill out a survey. So we found effective ways to engage. And the other part of it is just being willing to stop and talk to people. Don't turn your back on somebody who says, "Hey, can I ask you a question?" Be willing to be open, to have that communication, to have those conversations with the public. And I really love doing that. I love that interaction. And I think for the most part, our political leadership does too.
But I think you brought up one of the things again, the national scene even finds its way into, and like you said, it's not, it's probably, it's people who don't even live in Centerline hear about this thing, and and this is what you guys have to deal with. Like all of a sudden, I mean, I remember Jennifer Poirier, city manager in Clearwater, Florida. They had to close down their city hall meetings because people from not even Clearwater were coming in and disrupting and being crazy. And it's just like
the law doesn't allow us to say, hey, you're not from here, you can't talk.
right.
Everybody has a right to speak.
Yeah.
And, people, I think each community has to remember that even though they're their own community, sometimes what they do can impact people beyond the borders of your own community. And we know that to be true, at least in Centerline Warren, to always on a regular basis. It's that kind of situation arises pretty regularly. So
from that article you said too, I think it connects to this as well as kind of your overall philosophy. In the article, it said one of the things you gave as an encouragement to other city managers was don't take things too personally. And I thought, man, that is a great truth, but it is hard to live out when you, especially I think if you care about what you're doing. That's why I say local government is such a great work because it's so missional. You see the impact you're having on everyday people on a daily basis.
Yeah.
But I would think it'd be hard to take things. Sometimes you're like, man, I'm trying to help you here. I would think that that's the struggle is you can take things. It's set up to almost take things personally when you're in that kind of leadership of impact. How do you do that? What does that look like for Dennis?
Well, I mean, listen, there's failures in every job. You have to at least know within yourself that what you're doing is in the best interest of the people that you serve. And if you're not doing that, I think that shows a lack of integrity. It's important for you to, as a public servant, a person who serves others, to be a person of integrity. You have to be willing to understand all the things that you personally feel play a role in what it is that you're doing. So, I have my own political opinions, just like every American does. Keep those to myself for the most part. There are times where I allow it to bubble out, but city managers are supposed to be non-political, non-partisan. Our job is to be city managers, and it is tough sometimes. I feel like I could have done something more to get them to go one way or the other, for the council to feel one way or the other. But in the end, not everybody feels the same way, especially when it comes to politics. So it's easy for me to present ideas and concepts to political leaders, and not try to infuse my own personal political opinions, but stick to best interest of the community. In my summaries, in my presentations to the city council, we have a council that's balanced pretty level. 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans, and 1 independent. And the mayor does a great job of trying to keep them off their politics and focusing on what it is that is put in front of them for for them to make the right decisions for the community. And I think that the combination of that and me trying to keep my personal opinions out of it is what makes us successful here in Centerline. It's not always easy. Nobody has a job where you feel personally attached. My wife tells me all the time that, I take things too seriously when it comes to, wanting people to like what I'm doing and be successful. And she says, you're so worried about it. You're right. I am, because I'm human. But Over the years, I've learned to train myself or to get myself to keep my personal opinions out of it, stick to the best interest of the community. I did that in my days in the Marine Corps. I did that in my days in Warren, and even in the private sector, and that's maintained that mindset right here in Centerline. Probably one of the biggest reasons, of my success over the years.
Because and I think people get that they see that you do want the best interest of the place that you're at instead of
Yeah.
your own agenda. I think, man, so many good insights. I want to end with something I think is kind of interesting. You've already hit on it a little, but the article mentioned AI, and you kind of mentioned as we were chatting, it's like one of those things where there's these tools that you can use. Now, what's interesting about this conversation with you is you're an older gentleman, and usually it's the younger. I'm have some younger, again, we had the youngest city manager in New Jersey on. I just had a young guy, town manager in Virginia on. And so these young guys are all about AI, man. But you usually find us older people bucking against the system. Oh, we've got to learn one more thing. And yet here you saying champion it, like, hey, use the tools at your disposal. Talk about that. What opened your eyes to AI? How are you using it? How are you encouraging your team to use it?
We're just now becoming more and more adaptive to AI. But, for me, listen, I came into this thing at the very time in technology, when technology at the desktop was getting on the desktops. My first year in the Marine Corps, we had Zenith 150s, which were the very first desktop CPUs. And I was always excited then, and I'm still excited now. The difference between then and now really is back then they said it was going to help us be more productive. And we truly believed that because it was making us more productive. Today, technology is so complicated, at least for us old guys. I know a lot of young guys who's like, no, it's pretty easy. It's this, they knock it out. I'm not as energetic about technology such as AI. I see the importance of it in that it can help us provide more effective communication with the public, more engagement with the public through creating, creating online responses to Q&A or to frequently asked questions, FAQs. I got an FAQ, you click on it, and it goes right to an AI video that tells them exactly how they can go on the website to get this document or that document, fill it out, send it over to the city hall. You can pay online, that kind of thing. It's all about communication. Services that we provide really haven't changed in all the years I've been doing this stuff. It's how we bring that information to the public. So our Facebook page is very informative. Residents can't ask questions on the Facebook page. There's no comments allowed. It's just for information. But we put out there that, hey, if you have questions, go to our website, centerline.gov. And future with AI, they'll be able to actually click on something that takes them directly to the AI video that will tell them how they can achieve what it is that they're trying to achieve. So, that's really the opportunity is we still want to talk to the public. We don't want it to be where there are not personal services. When somebody gets to the point to where they can't figure something out, I want my staff and myself to be able to still talk directly to those residents. So AI is going to help us tell them how to do it. But if they still can't figure it out, guess what? All they got to do is click again, one link to dchampine@centerline.gov, and they can ask, or they can call the number and talk to a person. the one thing that I've always had a problem with a lot of companies with regards to public relations really is the ineffectiveness of having a recording dealing, trying to deal with a payment or whatever. I like to and I know a lot of humans that do still want to talk to a human being. So we're going to use AI to get people to the point of achieving what they're trying to achieve, but still make it absolutely possible for them to talk to a human being, because that human contact is still one of the most effective ways to communicate, I think.
Totally.
The kids today, they love that AI stuff. I know they do. I have a marketing person who's fresh out of college. She's been exceptional in getting things done on the technology side of things. Yeah. We're far more effective in communication, but she knows so much about that stuff. And it's like, she's telling me, and I'm just like a deer in headlights because it's just not as exciting at my age. And I'm no different than most people in my generation, but the good news is there's plenty of kids, youngsters that are interested, and we understand as a city that progressing towards that future in an effective way is still the best way to provide these communications from the city.
I love it. I think it speaks to just kind of your story, which is you are been willing to look and push yourself and look for opportunities to be impactful, whether it's right in the Marines and in the public sector, from schools to Warren to the private sector to now at Centerline. And like you say, sometimes it's not about you don't got to learn AI. You can harness the energy of these young people who know it and who are excited about it. And I think that's the best thing and again, whether it's from tax revenue or you're trying to get revenue from different, partnerships and agreements to engage with residents. Just what an impactful story of taking a risk and keeping your eyes open to fresh ideas. I think that's the key. I love it. Anything else you want to share with us? I want to be mindful of your time.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Seth. I'm just so happy that all the years of what it is that I've been able to do and achieve, the success I've had in throughout my career, really is attributed to and goes back to everything that I learned as a child growing up in Warren, and just been fortunate enough to have parents that taught me how to have drive and how to want to be a part of the success and have the success. And, I've really just been fortunate enough, blessed to have had the career that I've had and landed where I landed. It could have gone a totally different way. But again, having the knowledge that I had paid off. And it feels good to be one of the top city managers in the country. That's quite an honor, very humbling, and certainly proud legacy that I've been able to build over the years, for sure.
Well, back to the beginning of your story, thinking about your dad working multiple jobs, trying to keep 10 kids fed. I mean, oh man. And thinking about what you said about wanting a better life for you, didn't want you to have to grind like he did in the ways. And here you are, city manager of Centerline. I think you make the old man proud. And I think that you're setting a great example for the next generation coming up.
My parents are long since passed, but I do know that my dad had the opportunity to express his pride in me when not long before his passing. That meant everything to me because I know how important it was for all of us to be successful.
Yeah. Oh, Dennis, thank you for sharing your life, your leadership journey, your insights. What an amazing story.
It's my pleasure. Absolutely.
The stories we share here on the HaltingWinter Podcast are part of something bigger. a movement to remind us where government truly lives. No, not in Washington, D.C., but right here at home, where we live, where we work, and where we play. Because it's in our cities, our counties, and our communities that the real work of democracy happens. And when local government thrives, people thrive. If this conversation inspired you, take a small step that makes a big difference. Subscribe to the podcast, share the episode, and follow along on social media. Every click helps amplify the stories that build pride, purpose, and belonging in local government. To learn more about the HaltingWinter Project and how you can be part of the work that builds belonging, visit HaltingWinter.com. I'm Seth Winterhalter, and until next time, this has been the HaltingWinter Podcast.